Haere mai, from my heart place to your heart place, Kelly Woods. Welcome to the
back
Heart
at you.
Hospital podcast. Yeah, and back again. Yeah, welcome. I've been so excited to have you, a kindred spirit.
Thank you for having me in this time and space that we're sharing. So good.
You're so welcome. So if you've been listening to my podcast for a while, you know that I start by how we first met. So it must be maybe 6 years ago. I was a coach. I was an accessibility coach at Be Accessible. I was working with a mutual friend of ours, Des, and she's like, "You've got to meet my friend Kelly like this." And so we did, and I could see why. Can see why she said that. Yeah. So at that point, 6 years ago, we were probably like, we look back now and go, that's why we were doing what we were doing. So we were both energy healers doing Reiki, and I was doing Atua healing and all sorts of other modalities. And I think we were just really trying to find the panacea. I don't know.
The meaning of life.
Yeah, exactly. Little did we know that 2 years later,
True.
everyone else would be on our page.
Yeah.
And then 6 years on, really, really showing up for others and being their guides and their doulas and their stewards. And I know I had a call yesterday from a midwife, and she's like, "I know you've overcome this. How did you do it? Tell me, what did you do? Because I'll do it." And my reply was, "Oh, it's still happening." It's still every day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so welcome. But I just want to do an introduction as well to who you are, Kelly. Well, you're way more than this, but in one paragraph. You are the nurturing creative force behind Solace, a profoundly compassionate endeavour. Your work, guided by extensive experience in hospitals, hospices, communities, and homes, is formed by your personal journey of pain and ongoing learning. Solace aims to empower those prioritising their well-being, whether living with compromised health, receiving palliative care, intensively caring for others, or grieving a loss. Kelly, you offer support through the sacred end-of-life chapter, providing a spiritual space for dying and transition. Your practice, rooted in mindful presence and gentle, purposeful bodywork, draws on your nursing and counselling background. This approach assists with physical ailments, supports emotional and psychological distress, and fosters a peaceful recognition with one's whole beautiful being, the essence of who they are.
Thank you, Jacqui.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And so today we're gonna delve into topics. What's guiding us in this work that we now find ourselves in, the healing power of the somatic or the body work, which is something that we've both seen missing in the conventional bedside role. Navigating life and the challenges. And then meaningful conversations about death and dying. So I know you're friends with Teresa, who we've also had on the podcast.
Yes.
It's been a real subject, that sacred letting go and that sacred newness. So and then something big in my heart place is around that caregiving support, and living life fully from that open heart, that heart place. So I'm pretty sure we can promise some really valuable perspectives and some compassionate support to our listeners today.
Oh, that's the intention, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Always. And that was very much part of Heart Place Hospital, was giving a platform for the messengers, for the doulas, for the stewards, for the guides, so that those that need them at this time can find them. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing space with me again today.
Thank you, Jacqui. And thank you for all your work in and around community, your building of communities of practice internationally. It's not even just here in Aotearoa, it's all over. And it is a huge missing gap. And yay you for stepping up and doing it, because I know it's not easy working against the tide, starting something new. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of determination. So
Mm.
just a big shout out and a deep bow to you and your work, and to all who so far and who will be coming on talking and sharing space and conversation with you on this platform, because it's so wonderful to share stories. That's how we connect as human and as spirit souls. And there's so much transformation that as we listen, as we embody, and we can take that into our heart, or we can keep it light and go, doesn't really resonate, that's all good.
Mm.
But it's the sharing, isn't it? The sharing of the knowledge and the love.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. And I think you brought up a beautiful point there. We are sovereign beings. We have a choice. So if it
Yeah.
resonates, that's cool. If it
Yeah.
doesn't, we can move on. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Life's
Yeah.
like that,
It is.
take it lightly, just take it lightly. We're not in a rush. We
Yeah.
might feel like we are, but hey, life, it's about the everyday moments. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So I'd love you to share like some of your journey, like from, we've heard of your paying to purpose stories, which a lot of our stories have been from paying to purpose. And I think, like you say, other people hearing these stories when they're going through the crunchiness, it can then like take a wider
Yeah.
berth out and look at actually where is this, what is this, where is this taken, what can I do with
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear, and if you could share some of your journey.
Sure. Yeah, I call it the spiky edges of life, the prickly edges that we kind of don't want to go there. And but that actually is life. We've all got it. We've all got the spiky edges. And I guess how I've got to here and where I'm going, because like everyone, we are always in a state of becoming and evolving and transforming, and so we should be, because that's where the good stuff is in life, with all that it brings us. And I guess thinking back as far as I can, I've always had, I think I'm strongly coded for caring and nurturing. All human beings are. It's what we are. It's what being human is. But it kind of has followed me and really entrenched, probably. I mean, I remember as a child caring for poor wee dead birds out of the nest, and they were dead. I was trying to revive them and care for them, and all that. I mean, my mum was a nurse. I grew up in a family of volunteers. My parents, huge community volunteers, big hearts,
Mm.
big souls, and if they could help, they would, and if they couldn't, they couldn't. So I think it was pretty entrenched from day one. And so, yeah, I went into nursing, and I finished my nursing. And whilst I was nursing, I fell in love. I had children after we did our OE, came back, and I was always wanting to work in intensive care. So during those years in intensive care was where I had my three children. So it's quite a defining moment in my life. I look back with much fondness. And I think working in that incredible, acute, fast paced environment, I learned really quickly about the fragility of life. I learned very quickly about life's not fair. Things happen to people in a heartbeat, life changes very quickly. And as this was happening, it was happening for me on a personal level with quite a changing diagnosis for my daughter, who's my eldest. I have three adult children. And yeah, I think it was an incredibly big part of those years. I think becoming a mother is, but I sort of had these extra layers as well. And trying to care for myself while I'm raising the kids. I was starting a master's degree. I was doing all the things. I don't know what I was trying to prove. I don't know. I was happy. I was wanting to do it, but this kind of turned me sharply in a different direction. brought life into a very sharp focus. And I had to kind of start thinking, I'm really suffering. I'm really not in a good place. How am I going to care for myself while I have this beautiful young girl at the time? She's now a beautiful young woman, who's going to be living with us for some time, while we guide and direct her for her own life. But how am I going to care for me while I do all this and I, work and do all the things? So I took some time off, and that's been another theme in my life in relation to caring for my daughter, particularly. I've had to step out of work, out of career, out of all the things that actually bring me a lot of joy as well. But so does the caring. So then I had to kind of explore. So I explored, and I started off actually in community, joining a closed women's spiritual circle. And this kind of just happened. It's wonderful how the universe sends us to places, shows us people, opens doors. And I've always had a very big spiritual yearning. It's a very big part of my life. It's a big part of me. And I see it in my work that generally we're spiritually starved, actually. And I got a lot from that. And that took me down the road of learning Reiki and then wanting to do body work and delving in. I did some study. I did a postgraduate diploma in counselling. So I kind of went off on this amazing journey over about 10 or so years. And what came from it was the birth of solace. And I guess I'm actually not quite sure how it all worked, because it kind of just happened. It kind of morphed and evolved, and I kind of ran with it. And I wasn't sure what to call my beautiful business baby. And my husband actually said, he just came up with it one day. He said, I've got the name, it's Solace. And I sat back and I went, oh my goodness, that is, I love this. It just landed just beautifully. And when I looked up the definition in different ways, I went, oh my gosh, this is exactly, it is bringing comfort to people in distress. It is being able to sit with people and provide a sacred space for people to figure it out for themselves. Not for me. I'm really just there as that conduit, that guide. And so I started. And by this stage, I was in the midst of doing my reflexology training as well. And unfortunately, as I opened the doors to my very first premise, my mother got very unwell. And I remember I was actually due to connect with you, Jacqui, on one particular group event. And that actual day, my mum cardiac arrested. And I had to drive out of town. And it was a really, really difficult time. And mum died in an intensive care unit, which is what I never, ever thought would happen. And it was quite traumatic. It was not the way I would have wanted it to go, but this is life. It brings us all of the, we hold on to so much, don't we? Permanence, stability. Life's not like that. And so that was a really big, a big jolt personally. And I withdrew again because I just needed to be with my grief and sorrow and learn how to journey and walk with this. And then shortly after we got over that, COVID hit, and then there were multiple lockdowns, and and then in a new premise that I was, a couple of doors up, there was a fire, and I had to close my doors again. And then through all this, my poor, beautiful young, my daughter, who's adult, her issues and challenges came to the fore quite hugely, and I had to retreat again. It was the right decision. So yeah, it has not been straightforward. The universe has sent me a lot of obstacles, a lot of life lessons, a lot of moments for transformation, and that's how I do see them. At the time, they're really difficult, but I'm learning, and as I say, I'm becoming. I'm still a work in progress, like all of us. Learning how to move with them and befriend them, be gentle with them. As one of my dear friends, Angela, says, make a cup of tea for them, sit with them, talk with them, love them, nurture them, all those spiky edges.
Mm.
And then about a year ago, I've moved into new premises again. And I feel like I'm really changing direction after very deeply. I also work part-time at Dove Hospice and Wellness. And this area of work has brought me back to, I guess, my home, my centre where I feel really at peace in. And it's a strange thing, isn't it? When people are going through tough times on a whole body level, I actually feel really comfortable in those spaces. And whether that's come out of the suffering that's transformed into the compassion, I don't know. I don't kind of question it. I kind of roll with it. And I just think this is where I am, and this is where I'm being taken. And I'm really happy about that. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I did a podcast.
And may I just also say, it's been messy and totally non-linear, as you've heard, lots of barriers. Like none of this is easy. It has all been quite challenging, but it's the growth, It's the growth that comes through those challenges. We've all got them. We've all got
Totally,
them.
totally.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to say is a podcast I did with Jane, and she read a poem about big beings have to go through big things. So
Yeah.
consider yourself a big being.
We all are.
Yeah.
We all are. I think that's the beauty of sort of really having that faith, that belief in humanity. And I mean, we're spiritual beings in this physical body, which is an incredible vessel to have. We're so absolutely beautifully engineered and made. We really are.
Miracles, absolute miracles.
Absolutely miracle. You're totally right, Jack.
Yeah.
And just to be able to, we're all moving through with stuff. We just all have our unique circumstances, but it's all stuff, and we're all learning. So we're all in this together, but it's looking very different for each of us. Yeah.
Beautiful. So a few things that kind of came up for me when you were speaking was, and you and I are both in New Zealand, and we're in winter, so we kind of in our winter season is this sort of seasonal picture, the sort of the deaths and the rebirths, letting goes and the newness, and that's definitely come through in your pain to purpose journey so beautifully. And I think more and more people need to start to hear these stories, like we said, these sacred stories being shared, support others to go, oh, okay, right, I get it. This is the meaning of life. And when we bring it back to, always bring it back to nature, innate nature, that's what happens with our trees and our birds and our bees.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
so why not us?
Yeah, I mean, all these stories of pain and suffering and tough stuff. It's just so, we're so together with all of this, and it can feel very isolating at the time. I mean, there's been times where I haven't actually been able to leave the house, so my world became quite small for many periods of my life. And it's how do you expand it? And you're right, tapping back into nature, something bigger than ourselves. I mean, this morning I got up, I made my hot drink, and I walked out on the deck and I looked up. I always look up at the sky because I am in wonder of what is out there. And at the moment, we are entering Matariki, which is our winter solstice, our Māori New Year. It is the most divine spiritual time I just adore. And I looked up and I literally moonbathed. It's not a full moon, we're a post full moon. And that's been quite an extraordinary experience to roll through the recent full moon. But I just sort of, and it was crisp air. The colours in the sky were just absolutely divine. And the birds were singing. And at the same time, there was the stillness. and I was in bare feet, so the deck is cold. And I just sat there. I had that moment. And for me, these are the moments that bring me a sense of grounding, a sense of connection to something bigger than my tiny existence. I'm just one part of a massive cog of embroidered quilts across the world, and we're all, our energies weave in and merge in. So having those moments, even as small as that, I call them those little micro moments in the day. Um, just, I don't know, they just fill my cup.
Yeah.
They really do.
Oh, they're gold, yeah.
Mm.
You were definitely a golden thread weave
Oh,
through this cosmos for sure. And I guess these are the sort of conversations that I would love more and more of our frontliners, to our most vulnerable citizens to
mm,
hear and to get the code of that we are more than, the infected toenail or more than the
yeah,
diagnosis of whatever it is.
yeah,
There's so
yeah,
much more to us than that that is a part of the
yeah,
tapestry, as you call it.
yes, yeah,
And the more we can kind of, why I feel it's so important that our frontliners get this sort of messaging and this sort of code is that they're in front of, up to 30 people a day, and how quickly we can get that message back out into the world and
yeah,
start really putting some gold into those gold threads that we're all part of the tapestry of. Um,
absolutely, absolutely. And the work of, anybody that's out there in the front line. I mean, that was me at one stage. And um, I mean, I only formally left the hospital system a few years ago. And it's a tough gig. It's a really tough gig. There's a lot of need out there. Um, and it's repeat. It's on repeat. It just keeps keeps
yeah,
going. And I still have beautiful friends who are still nursing. They're still in very acute areas. They're still doing the most amazing. But it's tough.
yeah,
It's really, really hard.
yeah.
Yeah.
I still call you a frontliner. You're in front of our most vulnerable
I
citizens.
It's funny, I
But,
don't see myself that way.
yeah,
It's funny, isn't it funny how we define ourselves? Because I don't define myself as my job title anymore because I don't actually know what my job title is. I'm just kind of being me.
yeah.
It's kind of how I see it now. Isn't
I
it
know that's what
funny?
I got. I get paid to be me. Like
I
there's a job that.
I know, and for so long, and I'm sure you felt like this too, Jacqui, that for so long I thought, oh, I'm just a nurse.
I
What
did.
other skills do I bring to the table? And then I thought, oh my goodness, I have years of experience. I've been with people where, honestly, just incredibly sad, tragic, traumatic circumstances. I've been in joyous times as well. I've witnessed miracles. I've been with people across the lifespan. I've worked with babies right through to the elderly and now into the dying. And yeah, we downplay what we can bring for others. And it doesn't have to be a certificate. And I guess that's kind of the conditioning that we have been raised, particularly in healthcare, Isn't it lovely to think I can bring all of me and I can do that? I've been informed by lots and I have studied, I've got lots of credentials, but I see myself as just bringing me, really, because human to human, spirit
Yeah,
to spirit, soul to soul. That's kind of what my intention is. Yeah.
yeah. I see that too,
Mm.
and I I see the work that you're doing and the way that you're doing it now is the sort of support that we have with Heart Place Hospital. So you've healed many of your core boundary wounds, and you've learnt to advocate for yourself and others, and now you're crafting a life. So you've got a life that suits you
Yeah.
and that you
Yeah.
love. Whereas a lot of the time we were sort of just seeing one sort of option.
Yeah.
Whereas now with sharing these stories, we're able to share
Mm.
them with others who have got the expertise, have got that inherent nature in knowing, and we can create spaces for them to continue to share that knowledge.
Yeah.
with our society so that we can all thrive. And
Yeah.
it's just so it's quite a cool time. It's quite a crazy time, but it's a cool time too, seeing all these quite a
It
paradox.
is. Yeah, well, it is. It's kind of what we know that if we can feel okay about being our authentic selves,
Yeah,
life unfolds.
yeah.
And it's sad that in society we sort of favor being, um, Dr. Gabriel Mate talks about, attachment and authenticity, and we'll go for attachment because authenticity is really hard. It's really tricky. We want to stay with the group. We don't want to be seen or othered. But it comes at a price if we can't actually just be who we are. And that's okay, you know? So it's a really interesting learning. And maybe it's because we've moved into our wiser, older years.
Mm,
I don't know. I don't know. I feel a lot more confident in myself, and I feel far more the person that I um, probably wanted to be back in the day, but
mm,
actually I needed all those experiences to get to
mm.
where I am now. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I agree. I think it probably is come with our wise years. Um,
Mm.
but I also think divine timing, like I think,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'd be curious to hear like what sort of
Mm.
what how people received you as you transitioned from that traditional role, and the times that you retreated in, because I know for me it was my light challenged a lot of people, and I had to do a lot of letting go, to continue to stand and to embrace my authenticity. It was, for a long time I was like, I know I'm different and I really want this, but and I was looking for permission and validation, uh,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I yeah, I look back now, and of course that's all part of growth, and it was, it's all part of my expansion, all part of my learning, all part of me so I can share it with others.
Yeah.
But it was really crunchy, super crunchy. And I'm just curious, as you've kind of broken some glass ceilings, have you been cut by the shards of glass as you go through them by sort of
I think,
colleagues or family or
yeah,
friends?
I'm just thinking, I know it took me years to come out of the spiritual closet,
Yeah.
because I grew up with a lot of spirituality and right through to clairvoyance and all sorts of things as a child. And um, I just thought everyone else kind of felt that way or saw things or heard things or felt things. I'm very sensitive. And that's what a lot of us in the work are very sensitive. Um, so it took a lot of guts, courage, and bravery on my part to start saying, even just, oh, I do Reiki.
Yeah.
I laugh about it now because, Reiki internationally has now been offered in hospitals. And I get paid to offer Reiki. And it's a beautiful modality, absolutely stunning. So it took a while. I think I probably just made a whole group of new friends, but actually along the way, a lot of my friends have stuck with me, and they've been actually being go you Cal, love the work, keep going. They've been my biggest support, which I
Yeah.
just have felt truly humbled by.
Beautiful.
Um, but I think if I went back into an acute care setting as a nurse, bringing in all my stuff that I've now learned, I think that would feel different.
Hmm.
But who knows? Because we know that the type of body work that is being done out there across the world is becoming more accessible, more understood, more appreciated,
Yeah.
and more integrated.
Yeah.
Um, because we can have both.
Yeah.
We can have cutting edge science, all of the stuff that brings, plus we can have all of this beautiful, ancient, um, steeped in wisdom, body work, and all the other works that are
Mm.
around and supports. We're unique beings, and we all need a bit of a unique approach.
Yeah.
It's finding out what fits
Yeah.
for each and every one of us. So I think, in a way, um, Yeah, I guess, but I have felt lonely at times. Absolutely, Jackie. Yeah, I have felt like I'm the only one that
Mm.
feels the way I'm feeling and wanting to do what I'm doing. And but seeing that there was this gap and this need, um, it just felt so comfortable to kind of just morph into this and say, well, here I am. This is what I offer,
Mm.
and let the community decide whether
Yeah,
it's been taken up or not. So
yeah,
yeah, it does come with, you have to be, it's a conscious decision to step out and do
mm,
this kind of work for sure
mm,
and
yeah,
back yourself.
yeah,
Yeah, and find your tribe, find all the
yeah,
people that are going to really support you and bolster you through those spiky edges.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I so a few things come up for me in that. First of all is so I know Dove Health have
Mm.
embraced what you offer, and it's kind of like I'm just curious, like I used to see through your private practice, you're starting to see people that are coming through to stay well rather than to reverse
Mm.
illness. Yeah.
Probably a little bit of both, but I think a lot of people are generally looking for ways and looking for spaces to be held
Yeah.
metaphorically, you know, spaces where they can come in and I do explicitly say I welcome everything in this room. It's a safe space. I'm welcoming it all. The spiky stuff, the smooth stuff, the highs, lows, the roundabouts, the joys, the pains. You know, we can be with suffering very tenderly. We can do that. And so part of the work that I'm trying to um, ongoing develop is cultivating self-compassion and empowering people to do that for themselves because that's where it starts. If we can really be compassionate and gentle, but also have this the fierce self-compassion, stand up for yourself when
Mm,
you need to and advocate on your own behalf. These are
mm,
the things that are going to really hold you in good stead for your life, your living, be able to live how you want to live, you
mm,
know. And people tell me they feel comfortable, which is great. And it's interesting, even, you know, what I find in the body work is because it's not talking, and I do a lot of mindfulness to bring people into the space.
mm,
Um, once the talk is finished, sometimes just a hand on the shoulder can release a lot. So my approach is very light and gentle body
yeah.
work because I like to work with the body and let it kind of just unfold. And particularly as I'm working with people that generally, not all, generally have compromised health. I mean, all of us have got something happening in our physical body, um, and the multiple layers of the body. I'm not just working on the physical, but the gentleness can often, in a really, a body that's really working hard every
Mm,
day, it doesn't need much. And the body is required to work with whatever I offer it. So we don't want to overwhelm. We want to work with it. We want to nurture it. We want to provide some soothing for it.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So you've said a beautiful word that I love, compassion. And
Mm.
I know it took me a long time before I actually really understood self-compassion. So I had to practice it. Um, and I had to find space so I could learn it and practice it or remember it and practice it. And then as I've enhanced that, my compassion for others is just multiplied to infinity and beyond. And this is something that I would love for more of our frontliners to access. So I know when I accessed EAP 8 years ago when I needed it, it wasn't something that, it would have been a great thing to have started off with.
Yeah.
Um, to actually really embrace the parts that were showing up, and they were firing. They were on fire, and really have space, hold space for them, and show them compassion. And
Yeah.
and I just believe if we can get that message out to those who are in front of our young, our elderly, and our dying, and everybody, actually, all
Yeah.
society,
Yeah.
then because we all show up with our different parts, and our different parts are adaptations of our experiences and our environments. And there's times where I roll or touch or something, and I'm like, whoa, where'd that come from? Like, and more than that. And so we've all got it. It's never going to go away. But if we can hold compassion for one another, and then, like I said, really be able to advocate for ourselves and others, like actually just invite others to go, actually, I'm just, I'm curious. This is
Yeah.
the behavior that's showing up. Like, can you see
Yeah.
where that's coming from for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
give people the opportunity to really sit with their behaviors or
That's right.
whatever is coming up. So we can start normalizing this. And I'm really um, super keen for this sort of thing to be part of our education system, so that we don't have to pop out after 13 years of schooling and then
Yeah.
go to another school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So true. I think one of the big things I see in modern day living, and it's been going on for a long time, is we don't get still and quiet. We find it's actually quite a radical act to just stop, press pause, and go, actually, and give yourself permission to do that in the first instance, um, to just be still, be quiet, return to your heart center home, return to the breath, just be with whatever you are feeling, like feel into the vibrations and sensations through the body. Just being aware of the thoughts that are coming up, just let them kind of move through, kind of just being with. I find this is probably the biggest thing that's happening at the moment. We like to push things away. We like to park things. We don't want to, put it aside. I'll deal with that later. Unfortunately, we know that when we do that, we're not really meeting that experience or that emotional data that's showing up or the thought processes. We're kind of just sidelining it and it's amplifying it. And it's going to come back and it's going to bite us. And so I think if we can learn and it is a practice, like say meditation, mindfulness, that's a practice because it's something you never stop practicing at. Just to be quiet, just to kind of come home to yourself and have a few moments. And it can just be a few minutes in your day, you know. Even when I stop at the lights and there's a whole lot of traffic and I'm needing to get somewhere, I think, okay, this is my experience. And I've got a whole lot of other people in the same experience in front of me and behind me. We're all having to wait here. So I'm just going to sit and take a little moment to do a breathe, feel in, hand on belly, hand on heart, and just have that moment. And it can be just so really nurturing, really giving yourself some compassion, turning it back on yourself, but also grounding. It's finding your refuge. And it really is your own refuge. Come home to yourself because you've got it all there anyway. It's just trying to, and I agree, I'd love to see this in schools. I'd love to see this in hospitals where, at handover, everyone just stops,
Yeah.
ring a bell, sound a bowl, and just give yourselves, your team, a beautiful moment of connection before the day begins. It happens in other areas, and we do this in our hospice environment. I do this in my clinic room. I give myself that time. We give each other that time, and it just feels really nurturing. Yeah, it's very powerful.
Yeah, very powerful. So every time just before I start a podcast, I light a candle and
Yeah.
a beverage, and I do some I've got my crystals. I do a crystal clear, and then I put on a song and have a dance.
It's those rituals. They're so
Yeah,
important in
yeah,
our life. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Mm.
I want to bring I want to bring my favorite self to these platforms, and
And you do every time, Jacqui. And
thank
you're an absolute tonic. You
you.
you are so fabulous.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Oh, well, I've just so loved this conversation. It's been so beautiful. And I would love for you to share with our listeners what's coming up in your heart place right now. What's what's on offer that we can share with our listeners, and how can people find you?
Okay. What's coming up for me right at this moment is actually this present moment. I am feeling very grateful for having this time and space with you, Jacqui, and for being able to share, from my heart to yours and to everyone who's listening in. I'm just grateful for this present moment. It is the only moment that we ever have. And all these little ordinary moments are actually quite extraordinary. So that's what's coming up for me right now. How you find me, I have a website, solaceBodywork.co.nz, and on Instagram and Facebook. And I have a physical clinic in Remuera, Auckland. It's sort of down towards Newmarket area, but I also do mobile. I'm doing a lot more sort of home visiting for people. And again, I was a community nurse for many, many years, and I just love being with people on their own turf and their own space. There's something very, very sacred about that, and I'm always very privileged. So thanks, Jacqui, for having me on. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh, me too. Go well, and I will see you very soon.
Thank you.